Thank you, Presiding Officer. And like Sandra White, I've come to this debate with a great deal of enthusiasm and a giant head cold, so I hope you'll please excuse the sniffles as we go along today. I very much welcome the opportunity to close this debate as Labour's new shadow youth employment spokesperson, because we're talking about legacy. We're talking about the legacy of the Games to sport, to skills, to the health of our nation, to the regeneration of Glasgow and beyond, and indeed to our economy. And ultimately, legacy is about how we better ourselves and our nation for the next generation that follow us. And for me, that is what politics is all about. Today we've heard some great speeches covering various aspects of what legacy means. On health, I felt Neil Bibby made some excellent points around physical literacy, and also the fact that sport brings confidence to young people, and it also allows them to access new disciplines or that they may never have experienced or never seen before, and that is incredibly valuable in its own right. John Mason, Sandra White and Bob Doris all talked very eloquently, I thought, about the facilities that they will see in their own constituencies in Glasgow and the legacy that they will bring to the communities that they represent. And Hanzala Malik also talked about the important role that legacy can bring in terms of community cohesion and the integration of communities across Glasgow. When it comes to the economy, I thought Tavish Scott spoke very well about the contribution of the Games to the economy, particularly the point he made about the legacy of the Games in tough economic times, and the fact that we need to keep faith and encourage people to keep faith in terms of the economic benefits of the Games, when people could so easily see other ways of spending public money in better ways. And I think there's a great job to be done there, and I very much welcome the comments he made about perhaps publishing lists of Scottish companies that have benefited from the Games to perhaps promote that agenda more widely. I thought that was a very salient point indeed. I'd like to spend the time that I have left, Presiding Officer, talking about skills and sport together. And Neil Bibby already talked about two Glasgow City Council initiatives, the Commonwealth Jobs Fund and the Commonwealth Graduate Fund, which seeks to do that. The Commonwealth Jobs Fund aims to create 1,000 jobs which are targeted to 18 to 24-year-olds who have been without employment for 6 months or more. But personally, I was very impressed to see that they also give priority to living wage employers, and I think there's a very important role in terms of progressing the case for the living wage there. The Commonwealth Graduate Fund is worth £10 million over 4 years and seeks to create 1,000 graduate jobs, and that's very important as well when we talk about youth unemployment, particularly when there's so much displacement within the job market and underemployment within the market itself. These are then focused on graduates who have been without employment for 6 months or more. There's also a role, though, with regards to the Future Jobs Fund, and I'm aware that the Scottish Sports Association have managed to take on 67 young people through this scheme, and that to them is the equivalent of £435,000 worth of investment, money used to help create new roles around sports administration, coaching, IT and sports development. And coaching in itself is particularly interesting, and I noticed that it's hockey that have picked up these opportunities more so than other sports, because they recognise the opportunities this brings, not just to coach people in the skills of hockey and allow them to take those coaching skills into the classroom, but the ability that brings to increase the capacity of the active skills programmes, because you're creating more coaches who are then going into schools and delivering the sport itself. And we need to recognise the value of that and indeed encourage more of the same, by ensuring that when we teach new coaches, we also give them the business skills they need to be the self-employers that they so often are, and make sure that we remove any barriers to that. I recognise that the Community Jobs Fund does much of the same work, but I'm conscious, Presiding Officer, that particular pot of money security is unknown beyond March, and I'm sure that the Scottish Government wouldn't be daft enough to get rid of that money, so perhaps they could look at enhancing it by developing a particular specific sports strand, which could form part of a wider legacy for the Games to the future. I'd also like to talk briefly, Presiding Officer, about volunteering, which is something that John Mason touched on. I read with great interest the Manchester Legacy paper, and they talked about volunteering opportunities for over 10,000 people in the Manchester and Greater Manchester area. What was so interesting about that was that 24% of those people were volunteering for the first time. 47% said that they'd learnt new skills, and 20% reported improved employment chances following that volunteering experience, which I thought was very, very important. They were a mixture of volunteering opportunities around transport, event organisation, security, technology and indeed the supporting ceremonies themselves. So there's a real mix of volunteer opportunities to engage with. And I was interested to see that of those 10,000 volunteers in Manchester, 2,250 people came out with a level 1 qualification. They were actually accredited for the volunteering work that they had done. So I'd be interested to hear from the Minister whether there were plans within the Scottish Government to ensure that people who are volunteering in these games get the same accreditation for the experience that they're about to put themselves through. I recognise that there is the personal best scheme mentioned on the Commonwealth Games website, but although it's a very welcome scheme and seeks to work with people who are perhaps the most furthest removed from the jobs market, it is very small scale in the sense that there are only 127 opportunities being taken up so far. Perhaps the Minister could give us an indication as to how many she would like to see by the time that the Games come round in 2014, and perhaps match the ambition and indeed the delivery that Manchester brought with that regard, with over 2,000 accredited positions. Finally, Presiding Officer, I'd like to mention the Alliance for Sector Skills report into delivering the skills for the Games. They recommended that perhaps 10% of the opportunities the Games create could be ring-fenced, for want of a better word, for those disadvantaged in the labour market. And perhaps there's a role there to ensure that it's not just the same faces and the same people benefiting from these Games. They also make important points about the use of community benefit clauses, which I would encourage the Minister to look at more closely, not just with regards to the Games, but with regards to how we can use community benefit clauses in a wider sense across Scotland and in the procurement processes that we go through. They also have particular recommendations to make around the use of student placements and indeed the secondment of employees across different partnership organisations involved with the Games, to make sure that we really do feel the benefit of the Games across a number of different aspects of civic society and public bodies. Finally, Presiding Officer, I read a little bit of the Organising Committee's report into progress on the Games so far, and they paid particular tribute to the Government and to the various other agencies with regards to the strength of partnership that had been delivered so far. And it is in that spirit that Labour comes to the Chamber today to say, please work with us. Together we can deliver a strong, productive and viable Games that Scotland so needs and deserves. Thank you.